Hello again. Welcome back to English 242, American Literature since 1865. I am, as always, your instructor, Dr. James Altman. Remember, if you have any questions or concerns, you can always email me or put it in the chat, or we can talk during office hours or over Zoom, either one-on-one or in a group session, whatever's more convenient for you. All right, today we are going to explore Whitman's best-known work, Leaves of Grass. Leaves of Grass, Whitman's best-known work, strictly speaking his only poetic work, really. He drafted, and in a lot of cases redrafted, the original 12 poems between 1848 and 1854, and published the collection in 1855. Whitman set much of the type himself. He volunteered to do so. As we've said before, he never stopped loving the whole physical process of laying words out on paper. It's just as well he did. For one thing, his publisher had almost no money to put into the project. For another, nobody was sure how well Leaves of Grass would be received. As you probably noticed, it's not really what would have been considered conventional at the time. If your first thought upon reading Whitman was something like, "What the heck is this?" Don't worry, you're not alone. As it turned out, there was a lot of that. Also keep in mind that what we think of as American literature was really in its infancy, especially in terms of getting noticed and being well thought of by the literati of Europe. With only a handful of exceptions, for example, Washington Irving and Edgar Allan Poe, the prevailing attitude was very dismissive, as in, who wants to read an American book? Perhaps not surprisingly, Leaves of Grass didn't sell all that well at first, especially in the United States. It was well received, however, by a lot of the leading literary figures of the day. Henry David Thoreau, Ralph Waldo Emerson, and the other New England transcendentalists loved it. You may know that shortly after its publication, Ralph Waldo Emerson, who was about as eminent a literary figure as the United States had at the time, wrote to Whitman to tell him that as far as he was concerned, Whitman was the poet that he believed America had been waiting for, and moreover, he wrote, quote, "I greet you at the beginning of a great career." I suppose there's probably a lot of things that Whitman could have done with that assertion in order to help his career, whether using it as advertising copy for the next printing of Leaves of Grass without asking Emerson's permission was the best thing to do. I leave to you to decide. But that's exactly what Whitman did. To put it mildly, Emerson wasn't happy. He withdrew all the praise that he'd given Whitman, and it took several years for them to get on good terms. So what exactly was it that everyone either dismissed or got excited about or whatever? Well, Whitman, for lack of a better term, was trying to celebrate all of America, all he had seen, learned, and experienced all in one chunk. The bulk of that, as you've seen, is Song of Myself. Some printings have it as a book all by itself. It's divided into 52 sections, one for each week of the year. Mind you, Whitman only did that after his publisher asked him to. He was nervous that people would try to read each section as a separate poem, which a lot of people did and still do. I leave it to you which way you want to read it. I think, and I think Whitman would agree, that you will get a different experience either way. But it's that experience in itself that is valuable because it represents the United States of his time and what he was hoping it might become. As the narrator guides us along, he continually invites the reader to join in the song to, quote, "loose the stop from your throat," unquote. Remember that as far as he's concerned, everything that belongs to him belongs to you and vice versa. Nothing is off limits. Everyone counts. Every perspective matters. Contradictions come with the territory, as he writes, quote, "Do I contradict myself? Very well, then I contradict myself. I am large, I contain multitudes," unquote. That's the point with Whitman, and especially with Song of Myself. He's trying to account for everything in what was then a rapidly expanding nation. He's trying to put it in a form where everyone, in his own time and ours, can keep it and learn from it and cherish it, and above all, make it grow, both literally and figuratively. Think about all the types of people and places we encounter in Song of Myself. There really isn't much he doesn't cover. And if he happens to leave anything out, he pretty much catches the rest in Crossing Brooklyn Ferry. The movement of the people, physical and mental, the frenetic energy, the water itself, and the boat itself simultaneously moving while being captured on the page, I would suggest adds into Whitman's notion that in the United States, everyone and everything is worthy of celebration. As I said a little while ago, Leaves of Grass was not only Whitman's best known work, but really his only poetic one. Here's what I meant. He just kept expanding it periodically through the years, adding more and more poems as he went along. Every now and then he would put together a sort of specialty collection, for instance, drum taps containing a number of his poems based on events from the Civil War. You can think of it as kind of a concept album, is what we would call it today. But just about everything eventually ended up in a larger and larger edition of Leaves of Grass. The poems we're looking at come out of just about the largest edition from 1881. One of the most notable poems to debut in that edition is When Lilacs Last in the Dooryard Bloomed, one of a number of poems expressing Whitman's grief over the assassination of President Abraham Lincoln. Whitman absolutely adored Lincoln. As far as Whitman was concerned, Lincoln embodied what the United States needed to be in order to succeed as a nation long term. The imagery in the poem, in particular the lilacs themselves, strongly point toward heartbreak, and also the notion that one stage of history has come to a close. And as we close out things today, thank you for your time and attention. Remember that next time we'll be taking a look at the poetry of Emily Dickinson.